Hi, my name is Lily. I'm a first-year student registered nurse anesthetist, or SRNA, and I just finished my first 2 semesters of CRNA school. I originally intended to vlog for these little semester summaries, but the majority of my first semester was really just spent in front of a laptop, listening to lectures, writing papers, doing group work, and just doing a lot of research. So there really wasn't much to vlog the first semester. I did vlog my second semester, so that will be coming out after this. But I thought it would be a good idea to sit down so that I could really articulate what's happened so far in my program, what I've learned, and how I felt going through the first 2 semesters. I am in a front-loaded program, so that means I started with my didactic portion. For the first 2 semesters, my program was entirely virtual. So I've not actually had to be in class or in person or even in the same city as my program until the 3rd semester. For privacy reasons, I will not be sharing where I go to school just yet. I feel like if you dig and really investigate, you probably could figure out where I go to school, but please don't. It's really scary to put yourself out there on the internet because on one end, I remember doing a lot of research on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, kind of just trying to find out as much as I could about CRNA school and what life might be like being in CRNA school. So this is kind of my way of giving back to help aspiring CRNAs. But on the other hand, I feel like with the digital age and social media, it's very easy to give bad impressions and have things taken out of context. I've seen people talk about how their social media has affected their in real life clinical experience, and they've been reported to their program directors and whatnot, and I would never want to accidentally film or say something that I shouldn't. So I have to disclaim that I do not speak for every SRNA's experience for my school or for my future profession as a whole. I always try to keep my content grounded in my personal experience, so please keep that in mind. Okay, after this very long spiel, let's talk about my first semester of CRNA school. My overall takeaways from the first semester is that 1, I should have still worked. 2, I should have fixed my sleep schedule. And 3, I was ready for more rigorous content by the end of the first semester. And this is very circumstantial to me, just because I did things a little differently than the majority of my cohort. The first semester was a really, really nice transition into grad school and just being a student again. I personally only had 3 classes that I was taking, which were professional role and practice issues in nurse anesthesia. And in that class, we basically was just an intro into the nurse anesthesia profession. So we learned a lot about what the profession was, the history of the profession, and the advocacy efforts in the history of the CRNA profession. A lot of the advocacy issues that were currently going on. We had a lot of guest speakers and a lot of CRNA leaders that came to speak during our classes. And then we had assignments that were about advocacy, health inequalities, ethics, and then also just general discussions and group projects. The second class that I had was research evidence to practice. So this was really kind of an intro to research course where we were learning how to do more rigorous research and learning how to critique and evaluate different kinds of research. So what standards do you use to critique qualitative versus quantitative data? We also did our city training, and then we drafted potential PICO questions for our DNP project. After that, we also synthesized evidence related to that PICO question, which really just helped to lay the foundation for our DNP project. And then my third class was health informatics, and we just learned the basics about health informatics. There's really not much to say about that. We worked on a case study, we had an infographic and an innovative research project. And the professor, all I can say is she was a blast. I enjoyed her lectures a lot. She was fun. And it was just one of our APRN classes, basically. The reason I only had 3 classes was because I transferred in 2 classes for credit. They were epidemiology and advanced pathophysiology. I did sit in as an observer for pathophysiology with my class, but I didn't have to do any work or exams related to that. Honestly, these classes that I did take in that first semester, they were not difficult at all. It kind of just felt like a lot of busy work. Nothing was really anesthesia science related, so I didn't find the content challenging. I strongly believe that I felt like I had the easiest first semester because I did take those 2 science-y classes prior to starting the first semester. And I call that period my semester 0.5 because I took them in the winter, spring prior to starting school. So semester 0.5 was incredibly difficult for me. From January to March of 2025, I just felt like I was miserable and busy, and I was chronically sleep deprived. I took both epidemiology and advanced pathophysiology, like graduate level, to get ahead of the curriculum and to help me save a little bit of money. In hindsight, I would not have done this. I probably only would have just taken one class if I knew that the curriculum structure was going to change. When I signed up for the classes, what the previous year's curriculum was and what I had seen on the school website was that I would take epidemiology in the summer and then advanced pathophysiology in the fall. And then in the fall, I also had 2 other science courses. So my thought process was, oh, okay, I'll take both epidemiology and advanced pathophysiology to help lighten up the workload for both semester 1 and semester 2. So I signed up for the classes and then I started the classes, and then we were told that the structure had changed. They moved pathophysiology into the first semester with epidemiology. And that's how I ended up only taking 3 classes, and then I took 5 classes my fall semester as well. I wouldn't say that the content was difficult, it was just like a lot of work being a graduate class, especially because I was working full-time nights. I had a lot of travel, and I also moved out of my apartment in San Diego during that time. I was working a lot trying to pick up overtime, though there really wasn't much overtime available. And I just felt like I didn't have a lot of time to sleep, and I even like requested to be canceled from work a few times just so I could actually work and finish my assignments. And I really just felt like I was in the trenches that entire 0.5 semester. However, suffering like that really made the first semester a breeze. I think that's what my like initial points were, where I felt like I should have still worked, and I felt like I was ready for more rigorous content because I barely had anything to do during that first semester. I did stop working at the end of April. My program started beginning of May, and I stopped working because my former boss would not open a part-time or per diem position for me, and the only option was to either work full-time nights or to quit. Probably would have been okay working full-time, but I think it would have been like a repeat of semester 0.5 where I felt like chronically tired and just really not getting any sleep. But I'm taking virtual and synchronous classes, and my school is on Eastern time, and I lived in California back with my parents in NorCal in the first semester, and I had classes that started at 8:30 a.m. so that's 5:30 a.m. on the West Coast. That would have clashed with night shift if I had tried to work around that time. That's just how it ended up working. I was really hoping to be more disciplined and start honing good study habits, good sleep schedule, and just have a nice daily routine, but I majorly failed at that, and that is just my own fault. And I had class Monday through Wednesday. The assignments were pretty easy. I didn't really have any classes to study for because I didn't have any exams in that first semester. It was all just papers and assignments. So I felt like I had like a lot of free time, and that's why I think that I should have just still worked. I was living with my uncle before my program started, so like I definitely could have worked more and saved a lot of money, but that's not what happened. So just in hindsight, I think that's what I could have done. Overall feelings from the first semester, it was great so far. I like the program, the professors, and they have a big emphasis on student wellness. So that's very prevalent throughout like how the professors speak. And even though we are completely virtual, like I don't know how they did it, but they really picked a cohort that meshed really well together. Just from my interactions with my classmates, like we have a group chat, and then like we're always discussing things in class together. I think we get along really well. So the D&P portion, one of the things that really drew me to my program was that the majority of our D&P project will be completed before we start clinicals. So we made a lot of groundwork in that first semester, just getting our head into what we might want our DMP project to be, and then laying out like the initial evidence research background part of it. And then our summer semester ended a couple weeks early. We finished in early August to account for the AANA annual congress. I also like didn't fix my sleep schedule, so I was still kind of basically operating on a night shift schedule. And then the fact that my classes started so early, I just would just stay up. Not good overall. I was really lazy this summer, not working. I just felt very listless and very bored and ready to really just dive into the rigor and like complexities of anesthesia. That's what I was really looking forward to. Overall, I'm feeling good about school, and I was almost scared that it felt like too easy at that time. Everyone always says that CRNA school is like one of the hardest things that they've ever done. So like I'm asking for more, but is that going to bite me in the butt? We find out in semester 2. Spoiler alert, it did bite me in the butt. It was asking for too much. So I did 5 classes, and these classes were applied chemistry, physics, and cardiopulmonary physiology of anesthesia, advanced pharmacology, health policy and law, the steps to practice inquiry, which is our research class, and then leadership and advanced practice nursing. It did feel like a lot. especially when multiple assignments would be due like around the same time. I think we're really lucky in my program that our professors are really understanding and very flexible, so they were willing to move some due dates around to accommodate for certain exams that we had. So what's really nice about my program is that like classes are set up to only be Monday through Wednesday, so I get the rest of the week to study and work on assignments. And again, we're online and synchronous, and I think this semester definitely ramped up in terms of like how busy and like how much content we were getting and in difficulty. Applied chemistry, physics, and cardiopulmonary physiology of anesthesia. This class was really my first dip into anesthesia-centered content, and we learned a lot about like physics principles, gas laws, chemistry. I did a little bit of like OChem and biochem in there, just like very bare basics things. And then the cardiopulmonary physiology. We learned about the pulmonary system and we learned about the cardiovascular system in relation to how it can be affected by anesthesia and kind of just like what we're targeting with anesthesia in those body systems. This class was difficult in that we were learning almost like fresh content, like new content that I hadn't really seen before. I think sometimes it was just how I was learning the content that made it difficult, but in the end, like everything made sense. I just feel like science in that way makes sense. Like it might be like new concepts to learn, but overall I didn't think it was too bad. And then advanced pharmacology was part of the like DNP APRN coursework, so not anesthesia focused. Learned a lot about different meds. This class was difficult in the sense that it was just a lot of information to learn. Lots of mechanisms of actions, lots of side effects, and then the worst part, of course, was learning about antibiotics. It was just a lot to memorize and a lot of work to try to figure out how to differentiate drugs that were grouped together. And it was just like a lot to really just memorize. Like I literally had to go back to using a notebook and a pen to really be able to study for this, just because that's just how I memorize best, I guess. Like advanced pharm was a lot, and chem physics was also a lot. I was juggling a lot more, and I think if I was a little more disciplined and didn't rush as much, I would have felt a lot better about my grades. And then health policy and law was our other class, and that one was just like continued learning about advocacy and how health policy affects things on like different levels of healthcare. And the steps to practice inquiry was our DNP research, so we made a lot of headway into our research project there. Just continued researching evidence and then starting to put together different parts of our manuscript. We're taking it in like bite-sized pieces, but it was nice. I got to work on my IRB application throughout that. And then I'm also doing like additional training for my particular doctorate project, just because my project is with my professor. This like research that she's doing is funded through this grant through like with like international schools. So we have like an extra class, like me and a couple of other classmates are doing it. Basically had to do like an extra class outside of school to prepare for our doctorate project. I should just be like touching up and finishing the manuscript by the time we start clinicals in September. Leadership and advanced practice nursing, we just learned about kind of just different leadership and communication techniques, and that one's also just part of like our DNP coursework. Yeah, so I spent a lot of time in the library this semester. I'm still finding out what works best for me for studying and learning content. I think the content itself did get confusing at times last semester. Like I didn't find it exactly difficult, I was just really busy. Well, some of the content was difficult, but I think just paired with like the poor time management on my end, that is like what kind of made it a little harder for me. I feel like I don't really know how to explain how I studied last semester, but I think basically just like rewatched lectures, would take notes on that, supplement with either like YouTube, my textbooks, or Apex modules. And then I studied a lot with my classmate Amanda, who I met at the Diversity CRNA conference in 2023. And then I also studied with a couple other classmates a few times, and like we did study groups, and I thought those were extremely helpful. So yeah, semester 2, I guess you could say, was hard, but I truly think that if you have like good time management and you take the initiative when it comes to learning the material, like using just like whatever resources are available to you, it is absolutely doable. Like I'm not drowning just yet in CRNA school. And I think I might be exaggerating a little bit because like I turned everything in on time. I just didn't do things to my own standard, and that is completely my fault. I did the work, I did it well, and I made it to my next semester, but just for the expectations and standards that I had for myself, I don't think I quite met that bar, but it's still okay. I had an end of semester meeting with my program director, and she asked me how I felt about the program so far and like my own progress in it. And I mentioned that I felt like I could have done better. And then she asked me if I had gotten over 83% in my classes because that's what's required to pass. And I did. And then she was just like, well, then that's all you need. And basically kind of told me to not stress about being perfect and not being so type A. Big events that really happened for me over semester 2 was I made a transatlantic move. I moved across the country from California all the way to the East Coast. Did I have to yet? No. But I really wanted to, and just the way that like leases work out here, moving at the start of second semester was really the best timing for me to come. And then I also wanted to be able to explore the city while I had free time. And I was also just feeling like major FOMO because majority of my classmates are over here already and they live close to the school and they were all hanging out without me. So I think there's 3 of us in California and I was the first one to move. A couple other things, we had something that was called poster day where our seniors presented their DNP projects and like we went to that in September. There was a group of seniors that went to the 2024 annual Congress in San Diego that I had met when I went there after my interview, and they remembered me, or some of them did. Some of them remembered me, which was that felt really nice, you know, to be recognized, to be remembered. So that was really cool. I caught up with some of them. That made me feel special. I passed all my classes. Did I get straight A's? No. I got 2 A minuses. So unfortunately I have to let that dream of being a straight A student go. Passing should be good enough for me, but if I had tried a little harder, I think I would have been okay with getting an A minus, but it's the fact that I didn't put in as much effort as I should have. The habits that I had in the second semester were carried over from the first semester, and I think that's why I didn't get the grades that I wanted, but it's okay. It's good enough. Like I passed. I don't actually have to worry about anything, but I wanted straight A's and I was like a percent away, I think, from getting straight A's. Also, I think I need to find a more efficient way to use Anki. I like it and I see the value of it, but I just haven't found a good way to incorporate it into my routine. And I think just for the content and the way that I was studying, it just didn't fit quite yet. And I've also learned that I study best when I am not at home. So the school library, public library, and cafes, all of that, I study a lot better. I'm more focused when I'm not in my home. Another big thing that happened in the second semester was that we found out where we're going for like our clinical site placements for next year. We don't start clinicals until September, but we get to know our clinical assignment ahead of time. And we all got to request our top 3 spots. And the way that my school structures it is that we have like a primary site, so we'll be there for I think the first 6 months at least, and then do like rotations as needed. I did get my top choice, and there will be 6 of us going to one clinical site, so that's going to be a little interesting. And I think just the area that I'm at, there's a lot of like students and residents and just a lot of like learners, so I'm kind of like interested to see if that's going to affect me like getting the amount of cases and numbers that I need. But in the past, people have said they've had no problem with it, so don't think I'm too worried about that. But yeah, that was a big thing. I'm very happy with my placement. I do overall still like my school. I like my cohort. I think we all get along really well. Like my faculty is great. I'm very happy with the choice that I made to go to CRNA school, and I'm looking forward to really learning a lot more. It's supposed to ramp up in the 3rd semester, but I am excited to keep learning. So we're a couple weeks into my 3rd semester now, and I'm still waiting to kind of feel like I understand things. I feel like I do understand like what we've gone through in the content. I feel like I'm at surface level, even though the content that we learned is more than surface level. And I think it's just like a personal me thing, and maybe it's a little bit of like imposter syndrome and just me comparing myself to my peers in other programs. But this next semester and then like summer semester, things are supposed to start clicking more. I'm still really enjoying school so far, and I'm really excited for what the future has to hold. I really enjoy the city that I've moved to. It's very different from California in many ways, aside from just the weather, but I think this is like a nice little adventure for me in my 20s, and I feel like I'm making friends and overall just having like a really good time. And while school does leave me stressed, especially when I wait to do assignments and I'm juggling trying to do all my assignments and studying for exams at the same time, and it's always self-inflicted. I think I really enjoy the pressure and stress and learning. It's just what I thrive on. I'm really eager to start feeling like I understand what's going on and to start connecting things, and just really, really excited to learn about anesthesia and whatnot. I have not looked back at what I've vlogged yet, so hopefully I like captured what I experienced well enough. but I think everything's just greener on the other side. Like I might have felt like I was going through it in the moment, but now like looking back at it, I don't really think it was that bad. I'm just grateful that I've made it this far and that I have the opportunity to like learn anesthesia and that I'm doing it. Like I'm doing this damn thing. That's it for my semester 1 and 2 recap. I'm sorry that this is a little bit discombobulated. Thanks for watching.